Okay. Well, that should be enough for us to get started. This is the sixth of the signs John presents. And I think before we hit it, I think we ought to hit our knees metaphorically and ask God to speak to us. So, Father, we open your word tonight. We just ask you to speak loud and clear, to open our eyes to what you have for us, to help us see what you want us to get from this passage, and not just to understand it in our mind, but to really find a way to apply what you're telling us as we interact with our sphere of influence. We ask this in your son's name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, who's first? Who's got the opening thought? Who's going to sum up what we did the last couple of weeks?
My notes.
We're looking at Jesus' miracles, walking on the water.
That was last week.
Yeah, maybe feeding 5,000.
Yep, that was the week before.
Preparation, revelation, test, and believe.
There you go. So we got a little pad. We got an A student here. Maybe it's a lowercase a. Just
Yeah,
A student
lowercase,
here.
I'd say.
Yeah, I might have misread that. All right, this is the lengthiest passage that we'll read, and I think rather than trying to read it all and come back, we'll just start right on it. I think Harry and Chris, I'll start with you if you don't mind. We're starting with John 9, the first verse.
Now, as Jesus was passing by, he saw a man blind from birth.
All right, that's pretty simple. Remember, John kind of sets the scene for each one of these. He kind of, like a playwright would do. He sort of frames it in a particular way, something for us to look at to kind of give us context. So, what would you draw from as Jesus was passing by? What does that speak to you about as far as context?
He was on his way to somewhere.
Yeah, he was on his way to somewhere.
His purpose didn't seem to be at that location.
Yeah. And yet,
He was conscious of what was going on around him.
that's right. That's right. I think that is the lesson, Harry. If we're going to model Jesus' behavior, we're always going to be on our way to somewhere because, we live busy lives. But just as you said, he was conscious of a need around him. And that need that he saw was more important than his destination because he stops. Yeah. What's the significance of from birth?
He never was able to see before.
Right. Never has been able to see. Yeah. And think about, well, we'll get to the spiritual significance of that here in a second. So John chose to share with us a sign involving a blind man. And what I had you read this week was John 7, and it's this argument or this discussion with the Pharisees, really among themselves. They see Jesus as signs. They see they hear his teaching. They can't reconcile who he is. And there was even division within the Pharisees about who Jesus is. Well, he does all of these things. He can't be from the devil. He must be from God. And no. He doesn't do it the way we think, or he's not from Galilee, was the argument in chapter 7. He's from Galilee, and we know that the Messiah is going to come from Bethlehem. Well, what do you know? Jesus did. But they're having this argument before him. But John chooses to share the story of a blind man. And think about, in your own experience, why would this illustration lend itself to a discussion about belief or about coming to understand who Jesus is?
Well, isn't there a song that says, I was blind, but now I see?
Yeah. But what's the significance of that, let's say, spiritually?
Maybe he was physically blind, but we are spiritually blind.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to do this whole acting out. This would have been much better in person, but think for a second that I was a blind person and I'm going to go make me a peanut butter sandwich. Well, I would have to sort of feel my way along the wall, figure out where the cupboard was, open it up, fumble around to find the peanut butter jar, fumble in the drawer to find the knife, figure out where I put the bread in the bread drawer, pull that out, figure out how to open the bread, slap
That
the
sounds
peanut,
like John now.
slap the peanut butter on, put the two pieces of bread together, all to make a sandwich. And the first time I did that, there would be a lot of this, touching everything, trying to figure out where I was. Imagine I did that 1,000 times. I had a peanut butter sandwich every day for 3 years, right? I would get to the point where I would be able to reach into the cupboard and grab the peanut butter without having to touch where the cupboard was. I would just
Your
have
name
sense-
would be Jimmy Carter.
well, it would be, but I would be able to do that action by going through the ritual of doing the same thing every day. I would be able to know where the kitchen was, and I might touch the wall just to be sure that I'm not running into something. But I would be able to make that sandwich, being totally blind, not being able to see anything, but just from practice and from the ritual of doing it the same way every time. Think of the Pharisees that way. They're making the religious peanut butter sandwich. They're doing the same thing year after year, the same pattern year after year. They understand that pattern without having to see. It's their life. They do everything according to the prescribed rituals. And at the end of this, we're going to see Jesus says, you think you can see because you can do the ritual and make your own peanut butter sandwich. You think you can see, but you're really blind. And blessed are those that are blind, that don't understand the whole spiritual significance, but now can see because Jesus is revealed. And so this is sort of the thing I want to try to pull out of this sign, this difference between thinking you can see and thinking you can't see. And I'm cut somebody off there, I think. Okay, that was so thoroughly understood, no comment. So, Margaret, if I can have you go. This is John 9:2.
And his disciples asked him, saying, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he would be born blind?
What's the disciples' frame of reference?
Punishment.
Yeah. Yeah, something bad happened to him, therefore he's being punished. Or his parents are being punished, one of the two. Right? But this condition is because of sin, not just because of, of the condition. And is it possible to sin before you're born?
Actually, no.
No yeses on that?
No.
That's the original
No.
sin.
Yeah,
Yes, the original sin.
right. They all have
Adam and
we
Eve
all-
sin.
There you go. There you go. So that is not a bad statement. Is it the sin of Adam that's caused this? Or is it his parents have done something and the sin of the parents visit the third and fourth, up to the third and fourth generation?
I'm calling.
I wasn't. Peggy's calling me.
So anyway, that's sort of the that's sort of their point of reference. And how does that run counter to grace?
Grace covers all sins.
It does, but still bad
It's
stuff's
free.
happening here. Yeah. Go ahead, Nancy.
It's free. Grace is free.
Well, the disciples are talking about the sin that this man deserves, and Jesus gives us grace we don't deserve.
Right.
Mm,
So that's a nice contrast there. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. We don't think, well, we'll get it to the next slide. We'll get to the next slide. And this will be the Bradleys, if you would.
Jesus answered, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned, but this happened so that the works of God would be displayed in him."
What's Jesus' frame of reference?
That it's a setup to glorify God.
It's a setup. It's planned. This is for a purpose.
Yeah.
How does that help you deal with your conditions, whatever they are?
Doesn't make it more fun.
And it wasn't for this man either. But it doesn't mean God can't work in it. It doesn't mean God can't receive glory through our conditions, whatever those are.
And like, when my dad died, it was a really tough time, but I can't tell you how many people I've been able to counsel through, the loss of a parent. So, works in strange ways.
Yeah.
But it also, like a tornado strikes, and many people believe that it hits your house because you've been sinful or
Yeah.
you didn't go to church. It's basically telling us that, these things happen to us, whether we sin or not. It's not dependent upon that.
Yeah, right. Rain falls on the wicked and the good, or the good and the wicked.
Correct.
Yeah. This is what the world tells us, just what Harry says. How can you believe in a God that says he loves you and yet allows fill in the blank to happen?
Yeah. I'm sure the people in Louisiana are thinking that something's wrong in Louisiana.
Yeah, this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've had a tough go of it.
Those poor people.
Yeah.
So what do people say the answer to that is?
I think this is one of those, I would love to hear if someone's got a good, concise answer, but
I mean, better than it's a fallen world.
Well, I mean, that's probably is the best answer. Sin entered the world. And when sin entered, we allowed sin enter the world in the garden, then bad things began to happen. And God's been trying to redeem those things ever since. I mean, that's not the easy answer. That's not, but that's the true answer.
It's a really hard question, and one that as you share the gospel comes up a lot.
yeah. And what is the answer to that question?
I don't know.
This life on earth is a test.
I think Harry's point about, the bad stuff happens to both the good and the bad.
It's just how we get through it,
Yeah.
whether we rely on God to help us through these bad spots or whether we don't, I think.
I'm just going to play devil's advocate. I'm going to play devil's advocate on that because I've tried that. Shouldn't God, who knows the hair on my head, know how I would react? Why does he have to test me?
Well, maybe he's not testing you. Maybe Jesus says he's using this to happen so that the works of God can be displayed in you.
Right,
And so
right.
when-
It's how you're responding to it.
when Job went through it, God knew exactly how he was going to respond, but he still allowed it to happen
Right.
so that he could use, so that response would bring others to the kingdom and would bring others to his glory, which is not fun. But the goal is not here on earth, the goal is there.
Mhm.
So if that's the truth,
Look at,
Well,
I think, doesn't Satan have something to do with some of that sometimes?
Yeah, I think a lot.
People go, if there's really a God, why would he allow this to happen? Well, you hear people say that, but there's Satan, and he's always there, tempting.
And I'm going to play devil's advocate again because I've heard that too. But if your God's so big, isn't he big enough to squash Satan?
Yes,
He is big enough to squash
and
Satan.
he will
Yeah.
in the end.
Yeah.
I've always believed in that the three kinds of law. There's God's law, there's nature's law, and there's man's law. And they all affect our lives, and we can't ignore any of them.
I like that.
I guess my answer to that question maybe is that I truly believe that Jesus is the Son of God, and God gave his only Son to die for me. And if he loves me that much, then I have to believe that the things that happen probably don't come from God. They are a result of sinfulness in the world and Satan roaming free. And he's always there if we seek him out.
It's a tough question. And I get the sense in this passage, the disciples think they have the answer to that if it's bad, there's a cause, and the cause is this person or their parent's sin. And I think Jesus is framing it different. You know,
Paul writes in all of his letters about how he has suffered for the sake of Christianity and starting new churches and stuff, and he's just thrilled that he can suffer for Jesus. He fought the good race.
yeah. Everything that we'd say he accomplished, he says, oh, that's rubbish. And then he says, I boast in my weakness. I think that's what you're referring to, Leanne.
It's multiple, places in different contexts and stuff, but it's the same basic thoughts. Yes.
Yeah. Well, let's see how God displays his glory through the rest of this story. Because I think people wrestle with that question. I don't know that we have a satisfying answer to it, other than the hope that we have, that God will redeem all things, that all things will be brought under his control. So how will the disciples' eyes be open to see what Jesus wants to reveal to them? Hopefully this. I was going to say. Go ahead and say what you're going to say.
I was going to say he's going to follow through on what he just said is about to happen. He said that God's going to use that man to display his power, and so here it comes.
Yeah, and hopefully, our eyes will be open somewhat about what Jesus does here too. Because as we read this story, as we read what Jesus does, hopefully that something will be revealed to us, so that our eyes will be opened as well. There is going to be some glory of God displayed here, and we're going to be able to see that, just like the disciples were. And then, so this is sort of this rhetorical question: is this really about a blind man and having his eyes opened? Well, yes, because that's what the story is about. But it's really about us having our eyes opened. Who is this Jesus, and what will he reveal to us in this story that'll have our eyes opened? And I think that's what we need to be looking for, using the eyesight. That's what we should be looking for in this story. Okay, John, would you mind doing this one, please?
While it is daytime, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world.
What are the works we must do? And we read this back in chapter 6. Anybody remember?
Make disciples?
Nope.
No?
Back in 6:29, Jesus replied, "The work of God is this, to believe in the one he has sent." That's the work of the Father, is to believe in the Son. While it's daytime, while you have the light, you must believe, because nighttime is coming when you won't have the light, and no one can believe. While I'm in the world, I am the light of the world. This is another one of these great revelations, second of the I am revelations that he does. And John uses this idea of light and darkness for good and evil, but also for, the time when we can believe and the darkness when we can't. Why is it appropriate for Jesus to declare I'm the light here in this sign?
Because the light allows us to see.
Yeah, the light allows us to see. And so we can see what God is revealing to us here. He is the light that's going to help us reveal who God is. Okay. Lori, this one's to
Leave
you.
it alone.
When Jesus had said this, he spit on the ground, made some mud, and applied it to the man's eyes. Then he told him, "Go wash in the pool of Siloam," which means sent. So the man went and washed and came back seeing.
How was the man prepared?
Put mud on his eyes.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was something that Jesus did, but there's a preparation even before that.
Lifetime of darkness.
It's a lifetime of blindness.
Ah,
He's ready to see because he hasn't been able to see. He's ready. He's prepared. What did Jesus reveal to him?
You need to follow my directions.
There is that. Yeah. I am going to do this. Go, wash. And he followed that. And
So
which-
we, by the same token, need to follow what Jesus tells us to do.
Yeah. What was his test? And I think you already hit this, but what was his test?
To do what Jesus told him to do.
Yeah, which is to go and wash. When did he receive his sight?
after he did what he was asked to do.
We don't really know the answer to that.
Huh?
We don't really know the answer to that.
Well, he went and came back seeing. So we can assume.
Right, but he has mud in his eyes.
Well, he washed.
Yeah.
Right.
Washed it out.
Yeah. So why did Jesus need to use mud?
He didn't.
He didn't have to.
He could have just said you healed him without the mud, but
Sure. So what does the mud do? Why would he use mud?
Maybe because mud normally wouldn't do that. Maybe, I don't know, he wanted to demonstrate, water became wine, mud became sight. I don't know.
Any ideas? Any other ideas? Does the mud signify anything?
Yeah, from ashes we come, and from ashes we shall return.
Oh,
That's
it's from dust. Yeah, remember he's born from sight, right? And what does God do with dust?
from dust we were made.
Yeah, he creates. So there's an act of creation here too. He's kind of creating sight. And there's also this idea of being washed away, of taking the blinders off, being able to see. I think all of those elements kind of come in there. What can you draw from this symbolically or spiritually?
Not to make light
Oh.
of this, but it's kind of as clear as mud.
Here's mud in your eyes.
Yeah.
Good one.
Clear as mud.
I do love a good pun. Okay. Nancy, I think I'm to you.
At this, his neighbors and those who had formerly seen him begging began to ask, "Isn't this the man who used to sit and beg?" Some claimed that he was, but others said, "No, he just looks like him." But the man kept saying, "I am the one."
Why did the neighbors doubt? They have eyes. Why do they doubt?
They have
Because
eyes
he's
that you
able
cannot
to see.
What does this say about their idea of seeing and yet not seeing? Who had formerly seen, I think I asked this question. They had eyes, they had seen him and it looks like him, but it's different. The blind man couldn't see before and now he can. They have always been able to see, and yet they don't see what's been revealed here. They can't understand that. So now who's blind? Like this play back and forth of seeing and blindness. And we'll see that in the Pharisees here in a minute too. And then Cindy, if you do this one, please.
How then were your eyes opened? They asked. He answered, "The man they called Jesus made some mud and anointed my eyes, and he told me to go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed and received my sight." "Where is he?" they asked. "I do not know," he answered.
Another encounter, another miracle, another declaration, another testimony. And he gives this testimony about what happened to him.
But it's no different with us today. We spout skepticism about a lot of things. And we're always trying to figure out some reason that something happens without giving credit to God.
Yeah. And he doesn't, I don't know that at this point in time he understands what happened, but he does understand that a man called Jesus did this. And I washed, I did what I was told, I washed, and I can see. He understands that. But he is testifying to what's actually happened here. Okay, and this is the lookers.
Brought to the Pharisees the man who had been blind. Now the day on which Jesus had made the mud and opened his eyes was a Sabbath. So the Pharisees also asked him how he received his sight.
Okay, who's the they here? Who's bringing him to the Pharisees?
The neighbors, the people around him.
Yeah, the people that have seen this change in him. Why do you suppose they're bringing him to the Pharisees?
Miracle.
Because it was on.
He did
They
it on
want
the
to know
wrong
what
day.
solution that the Pharisees have, or what their reasoning is for this miracle.
Yeah, it's like this is happening before us. We don't understand it. We're going to go, to the leadership that we have, and we're going to ask them. Did the Pharisees care about how it happened? Because that's what they asked. Or did they care about who made it happen?
Well, since it happened on the wrong day, they cared about who.
Yeah, we'll see that even more as this interview continues. Yeah, they ask about how, but they really care about who, because something's not right here. Yeah. All right, this is I think I'm to Leanne.
The man answered, "He put mud on my eyes and I washed and now I can see."
Second time he's declaring what Jesus has done, although he simplified it a little bit. Remember before it was like 3 lines. Now it's down to 1 sentence. It repeats the chain of events. What do you suppose he's beginning to understand?
They don't really care about him. They just want to know who this person was that healed them on the Sabbath.
Yeah. But what does the blind man understand about this event that's happened to him?
It's just
It's
pretty
a little-
simple to his mind.
Okay. And what is the simple that he gets?
Put
It's a
mud on
miracle.
my eyes and I washed and now I can see.
Yeah. Before you're getting there, before it was he put mud on my eye and I went to the pool and I washed in the pool and there's all these other details. Now he simplified it. He put mud on my eyes, I washed, and now I can see. And as we go further, he'll get this even more simplified.
I think
what-
also, doesn't he also, Tim, he also, by listening to the way they're questioning him, they're not looking at it as a miracle. They're looking at it, okay, we're going to figure out a way. They're very negative about this. Not like, wow, it's a miracle. This is a great thing that happened to you. It's like, no.
Yeah.
This person did something wrong. He healed you. So he's not giving any more details about it.
Yeah, he's getting it down to the bare bones because he's also repeating it, but it's getting simpler what he's saying. And so what value is there in sharing my testimony to me? What value do I have in that testimony when I share a testimony?
I guess keep it simple.
Yeah, but as you hear yourself say, this is what God has done for me, or this is, there's the situation I was in and this is what God has done. What does that do for you?
It's a reminder.
Build your faith.
Yeah, both. It builds your faith and it is a reminder of what God does. There's a value in us repeating our testimony for ourselves, not only for the person hearing it. Okay, back to Harry or Chris.
Because of this, some of the Pharisees said, this man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath. But others said, how can a sinful man perform such signs? And there was division among them.
Yeah, this is where the chapter 7 comes in. There's the same sort of argument among them. So if you were a Pharisee, what's blinding you? What is keeping you from seeing what's happening here? What's
The
keeping?
law.
Yeah. And how does the law keep them from seeing that?
Because he broke the Sabbath.
Yeah. He can't be righteous. He's violated a rule. So do we lose sight of the simple gospel message in a complex world where there's all kinds of rules and factors and whatever going around?
Every day.
Yeah. And the message itself is very simple. And as the guy responds, you'll see that message gets even simpler. Yeah, that was the verse we just read. Well, I'll go back to it. He put mud in my eyes, I washed, and now I can see. That's the response. It's a very simple. It's not any more complex than that. This is what happened. So Margaret, I'm to you again. This is 9:17.
But he said to the blind man again, what do you say about him, since he opened your eyes? And he said, he is a prophet.
Yeah. So does the blind man believe in the John 3:16 sense?
No,
Not yet.
no, because he says he's a prophet.
Yeah,
He's not the he's not the son of God.
He's not there yet. He's not there yet, but he will by the end of the story. Yeah. This is Bradley's.
The Jews still did not believe that the man had been blind and had received his sight until they summoned his parents and asked, "Is this your son, the one you say was born blind? So how is it that he can see now?"
Did they even believe the man was blind?
I have
No.
questions.
Yeah.
Nope.
No, they didn't. They didn't. And the parents come in and confirm it. They give testimony about his blindness. And then they're asking, well, how can this be? We don't get this. We don't understand this. How can this man see now? And since there was division, what do you suppose are the arguments they're making among themselves as they're hearing this testimony of the parents?
I'm trying to decide if he's evil or good.
Is he who he says he is? Or is he an imposter? Is he a blasphemer? And they're arguing this back and forth. And this is John.
His parents answered, "We know he is our son, and we know he was born blind. But how he can now see or who opened his eyes, we do not know. Ask him. He is old enough to speak for himself."
They're testifying that he's a son, but they don't understand the cause and effect here. He was blind, now he can see. We don't know how. What
Yeah,
what
they
is
don't want to
his-
get they don't want to get in trouble either.
right, right.
So they're
Yeah.
like, no, they don't want to get kicked. That was a huge thing to get. If they went against the Pharisees, they'd be kicked out of the temple and ostracized, and the parents weren't willing to risk that.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and let you read the next verse, Lori.
Yeah, I was saying, I think they do though.
His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jews, for the Jews had already determined that anyone who confessed Jesus as the Christ would be put out of the synagogue. That's why his parents said he is old enough to ask.
Yeah.
So ask him.
Yeah, they're not going to answer the question. They know a trap when they see one. So were the Jews even open to believe?
No.
No, they've already made up their mind. Don't confuse us with evidence and facts. I've got my mind made up here. What about those that were divided? I would say they're in the minority. Remember, we read,
Nicodemus didn't want to let anybody know that he was following Jesus.
yeah, and how do we know that?
He came at night.
Yeah,
No, quietly.
yeah, quietly at night, but kind of on the sly. But and then he struggled. We read that. We read that in chapter 3 that he struggled to understand it. But as a body, he's probably in the minority because the majority is determined that anyone confessing Jesus as the Christ be put out of the synagogue. So he's probably a minority voice there, if he's raising a voice at all.
But don't most of us in today's day and age follow that same kind of scenario where we try and stay away from conflict and kind of have a low profile?
You're thinking,
Nope.
Not Harry. Not Harry.
depends on the context. And
It depends on who it is.
yeah,
Let's be real.
yeah, there's nothing wrong with conflict if you know what you're trying to get out of conflict is a mutual resolution. If you're just in a conflict to be conflicting, then I'm not sure that helps either side. But anyway,
we follow the do your best to keep the peace, but not at the cost of your beliefs. So
okay, this is, I think I'm to Nancy.
So a second time they called for the man who had been blind and said, "Give glory to God. We know that this man is a sinner."
This reminds me of one of those detective shows where the detective gets in there and said, your partner's already confessed to this.
Yeah.
Trying to get a response they're hoping to get. That's what that reminds me of. We already know this man's a sinner. What do you say about it? And then Cindy, this is his response.
He answered, "Whether he is a sinner, I do not know. There is one thing I do know. I was blind, but now I see." Straight from Amazing Grace.
So now his testimony is even simpler. I was blind, but now I see. No details are needed. This is it. This is how I was. This is how I am now.
Isn't that all our testimony?
Yeah, I think that is. That's why Cindy's reference "Amazing Grace" is really good, because that is all it is. I was dead and now I'm alive. I'm blind and now I see. I didn't hear his voice. Now I do. I didn't have a relationship. Now I have. I was a slave to my sin and now I'm free. I mean, all of those, whichever one of those you want to, they're all that simple. And I think he's got to that point in the testimony. Does he believe Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and trusting him for eternal life?
No.
Not
No.
yet. Not yet.
No.
There's hope for this man. We can continue to pray for him. Cindy, and then Patty or Joe, I think this one's yours.
What did he do to you? They asked. How did he open your eyes? He replied, I already told you, and you did not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you also want to become his disciples?
Ooh.
I really like this guy. I really like this guy. You know, it's like, I've already told you. If you go back to chapter 7, the officers were sent to the temple to capture Jesus. And they come back without him, and the Pharisees are questioning him. Has anyone, and their excuse is, never has anybody spoken like this man. The officers answered, have you also been deceived, replied the Pharisees? Have any of the rulers of Pharisees believed in him? But this crowd does not know the law. They're under a curse. And it's the same argument being used against them. You know, it's the same. I don't understand who this Jesus is, but I know he's something special. That's what the officers say. And the Pharisee says, but we already have our minds made up. We already know who he is. And it's the same argument that the blind man saying the same way. Okay, I am to Leanne.
Then they heaped insults on him and said, you are his disciple. We are disciples of Moses. We know that God spoke to Moses, but we do not know where this man is from.
Think they could ask that question? Yeah. What are they basing their eternal destiny on?
Moses.
Yeah.
Law.
Yeah, Moses and the law. Those are kind of synonymous. That's what they're thinking on. That's why they follow the law to the nth degree, because they think they can earn it. If they can do enough right stuff to do it. That's what they're basing it on. What are they blind to?
Grace.
That Jesus has come to fulfill the law.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a bigger thing here. And they're just not even blind to it. They're opposed to it. What will open their eyes?
Nothing.
Will another sign do it?
No.
Will more evidence of who Jesus is do it?
No.
God's
Maybe
hardened
it's
their
death on the
hearts.
cross.
Yeah, God hardened their hearts so that they would fulfill the mission that he had for Jesus.
Yeah, they are without hope here.
Even when he fulfills the law that they believe in, they still can't see it.
Yeah.
Right.
This is what they do see from chapter 7. He's from Galilee. They knew where he was from. The Messiah is not from there, but from Bethlehem. But they didn't understand that he actually was born in Bethlehem. So they didn't get the full biography of him. But this was their argument of why they didn't think he was the Messiah, because he's from Galilee. Okay, back to Harry Chris.
That is remarkable indeed, the man said. You do not know where he is from, and yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners, but he does listen to the one who worships him and does his will. Never before has anyone heard of opening the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do no such thing.
Pretty powerful there, don't you think?
Mhm.
Yeah.
They won't believe it.
Yeah. Is his logic sound though, John?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it, I mean, could they refute his logic at all?
No,
Be pretty hard.
Yeah. Will it convince them?
No.
No. Come back to the mud. The Pharisees, in a sense, have mud in their eyes, and they're unwilling to take that mud away to see. And as long as that mud's there, they're going to be blind. They're not going to see Jesus for who he is. But what is this man growing to believe?
Well, as he said, that this man is from God.
Yeah.
This man must be from God.
Right. He's growing in appreciation of who Jesus is, even though he doesn't know who Jesus is. But as he's working through what's happened, as he's being challenged, as he's being tested, as he's giving his testimony, as he's going through this, you see this, and I can almost see it as his eyes are going wide, as he's actually beginning to see what's actually happened to him and who's actually done something for him. He's understanding who Jesus is. His eyes are being opened to that. I don't know where I left off. I think maybe, Margaret, I left off with you. This is 934.
They answered and said to him, "You were born entirely in sins, and are you teaching us?" So they put him out.
There would not be any pride involved there. Is that a true statement, though? Were you born in utter sin?
I don't believe that you're born in sin. I believe you're born into a sinful world.
Okay.
Because he was born blind, is that why they say he was born in utter sin?
I think so. I think so. And the next question maybe hits that. What do they assume, as did disciples?
That somebody in his family had sinned, or he had sinned because he was born blind.
Yeah. So you were born in utter sin because of this. And you're instructing us, those of us who can see and understand. And so what did Jesus begin to reveal instead?
That's who he came to the world for, was for the sinners.
Yeah. He came to open the eyes of those that are blind. Yeah. Okay. Kind of zipping through here because of time. Bradley's sure that this one.
When Jesus heard that they had thrown him out, he found the man and said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" "Who is he, sir?" he replied. "Tell me so that I may believe in him."
So as we think through this encounter this man had, an encounter with Jesus, an encounter with his friends and neighbors, with his parents, with the Jewish leaders. So he's had several interviews, several instances to test this. Has he been prepared to believe?
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
Talk about some ways that he was.
He had to
Well,
yeah.
Why don't you start, Laura?
No, I just said he constantly repeated his testimony. It just kept drilling in him what he actually, the blessing that he actually got.
Mm-hmm. And someone else had something too.
I thought by his last statement to the Pharisees too, he was.
Yeah, he's growing in appreciation of who Jesus is. He's growing in appreciation of what's actually happened to him. Yeah.
Well, and they kept accusing him of being a sinner.
Yeah.
And not a believer. And
Yeah.
that these miracles couldn't happen to him because he wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. He wasn't worthy of it, was he?
Right.
Yeah.
But Jesus didn't ask him that if he
No.
was worthy. No.
So how is this physical change a metaphor for a spiritual change?
God was revealed to him.
Yeah. Could he see God before?
No.
Well, certainly not because he was blind, but spiritually, could he see God?
No, because he only knew the Jewish law.
All of that's hidden from him. And yet Jesus opens his eyes. Where are we at? John, you have this one.
You have already seen him, Jesus answered. He is the one speaking with you. Lord, I believe, he said, and he worshiped Jesus.
Of all the encounters that we've read so far, here's the first one that truly understands who Jesus is. It's the first one that worships him for who he is. We've kind of seen his progression as he begins to understand. He understands a physical act that has happened. He understands as he recounts it that it's a person that has done this. And finally, he understands that it's Jesus who did this. And now he understands that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God. And he accepts that fully. He has reached that point of true belief. What he could not know has been revealed. What was obscured in his view has been washed away. I was blind, but now I see, and Lord, I believe. And that's really the progression of kind of coming to faith. And sometimes it is a progression like that. I'm kind of
So does he believe that Jesus is a prophet or something else?
No, I think at this point in time, because Jesus reveals to him specifically, do you believe in the Messiah? And he says, yeah, I think it's Messiah. Let me go up one.
But what did the Jews think the Messiah was? They didn't believe that was the Son of God.
Well, Jesus asked him, do you believe in the Son of Man, which is the promised one, the one that was to come? And he asked, well, tell me who he is so I may believe. He's ready to believe that. And Jesus says, I am he. I am the one speaking with you. And he accepts that Jesus is telling him the truth. He accepts that Jesus is the Son of Man. He is the Messiah, the Son of God. And he accepts that because as he's worked through this experience, he understands that it was Jesus that's caused that change. And he says, yes, I do believe.
But did the Jewish people believe that the Messiah was the Son of God? And I don't think they did.
I don't know the answer to that. My guess is that it wasn't revealed to that until Jesus came, and then until Jesus reveals that. But I don't know that for sure, Harry.
No, they were looking for the Messiah. They were expecting the Messiah. That was what everything was leading up to it. They just didn't recognize Jesus as the Messiah, which would be the Son of Man, or Son of God.
Yeah, I think Harry's, well, yeah, I guess Harry's question is the Messiah and the Son of God, do they understand that to be the same person? Or did they expect him, as Moses had said, there was a prophet that comes after me, that kind of points the way to the Messiah? Did they understand that the Messiah would be God himself?
Yes, I think they do. Yes, they do. I think they do. I remember from my teachings, I think they do. Okay. They're still looking now. They're still looking for the Son of Man. Because they're still, but they don't envision the Son of Man to be a common person. They expect him to be a king, as in King David, and to be a conqueror. They don't expect it to be somebody lowly like Jesus was.
A carpenter. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tradesman.
Yeah. Okay, so I think this may be the final one, or next to the final one. And I think I am I forgot who read last. Laura, did you read last?
No. No, I didn't read last. You want me to read?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Then Jesus declared, for judgment I have come into this world, so that the blind may see, and those who see may become blind. Some of the Pharisees who were with him heard this, and they asked him, are we blind too? If you were blind, Jesus replied, you would not be guilty of sin. But since you claim you can see, your guilt remains.
And what's the blindness that prevents them from seeing Jesus as he is?
Their own.
Their pride.
Their laws.
All right.
Their
So
egos. Their egos.
I got egos, their laws. Harry, you said something.
No.
Their pride.
Okay. Joe said pride. Abigail, you said something. I didn't hear that.
I said pride.
Okay. Looks like pride's the winner. Is there pride in that we have it all figured out, or is there pride at, we're greater than you? What is their pride?
It's that they're better. They deserve better, and they know better. And
It's probably both. We've got it all figured out and we're better than you.
So why are they wrong when they said they can see?
Because the answer is standing right in front of them and they missed it.
Go back to my
Literally.
peanut butter sandwich thing. So now someone turns on the kitchen lights and now they can actually see what they're doing. And what they realize is what they've been doing is eating mayonnaise all these years.
Yuck.
That sounds gross.
It does. I went through the ritual. I did everything I was supposed to do. I buttered the bread. I put it together, put it in my mouth. I ate it. I didn't realize that wasn't peanut butter.
Right.
Yeah.
They've lived their lives the way for the law all their lives. And now all of a sudden it's,
They followed the ritual, but they missed the whole point. Yeah.
Yep.
Jesus wasn't good enough for them.
Didn't fit their idea of what peanut butter sandwich is.
Just an ordinary guy, not a king.
Yeah. Okay, so we're where we are on time, so I'm going to try to wrap this here. So I think it really mirrors our experience with Jesus. We have a need, and it's from birth. We cannot relate to God from the very beginning. We just can't do that. But we have a cure, and that cure that we have is really for the glory of God. Angels long to hear about our redemption story, and it really glorifies God. And we can wash the mud from our eyes if we're willing to do so. There is an act that has to happen, an obedience that has to happen, an acceptance of Jesus for doing what he says. And we can see Jesus for who he is because he wants to reveal himself to us. Remember, he found the guy in the temple. The guy didn't go looking for him. Jesus found him. He wants to reveal himself to us. And we can believe that he is the Messiah, the Son of God, and by our belief, have eternal life. And that, I think, is one of the key messages as we share in our world, is that Jesus wants that relationship with us. He desires to reveal himself. We have to be open to it, but he wants to do that.
I mean, he's wanted to have a relationship with us. He's wanted to dwell with us. I'm doing this Garden to Glory study, and the whole tent and the temple. He desires to dwell near us.
Yeah, that's a great example because it's not just the garden.
No, the garden where it started, and when it got sin injured, he still is pursuing and wants to be near us.
Yeah, that's great. Any other thoughts?
I'd just like to share a little story about the actual blindness. My two daughters took piano lessons when they were young, and their piano teacher was a blind woman. And she had so much insight into so many things that she taught my girls more than just teaching the piano.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they often say that when one sense is, not there, that the others, are accentuated, and probably the way that you perceive the world is, gives you so much more insight.
She didn't look at her blindness as a disability or anything. She just used what gifts God had given her, and she lived them out beautifully.
Mm-hmm. Great story.
It's interesting that our earthly thinking is seeing is, we have a saying that seeing is believing, but actually it's the other way around. Believing.
Ah,
Seeing.
Mhm.
that's
I like
good.
that, Joe. I like that a lot.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Reminds me of that song,
Open the eyes
Open
of
the
my
Eyes of
heart.
My Heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How's that go? Can you sing it, Patty?
No, Joe can.
Open the eyes of my heart,
Lord,
open the eyes of my heart.
I want to see you. Yeah, that's a beautiful song. Yeah, great. We started this and we talked a little bit about the news cycle, just what we hear, and we heard one good news story out of that, and I think it might be appropriate that we ask God to kind of open our eyes to where He's working in our world. Where is He active? And where can we experience that glory as he works in our world? And if someone will start it, I will close it out.
Father, we just thank you for another opportunity to get together, another opportunity to dive into your word, Lord. And we just thank you that you're here. We thank you that you're dwelling among us. We thank you that we know you and that you're always revealing yourself to us, Father. And we just ask that you continue to open our eyes as we go through life and continue to help us find moments where you can use us while we're on our way to somewhere else. And just keep us paying attention to what's going on around us. Father, I just want to take a minute, lift up Randy. He's really struggling. And, I just want to ask you to just be with him and shower him with your presence, Lord. Just fill him with your spirit and let him know that you have plans for him, and he needs to worry about what you have for him and what you need him to do to glorify you. And Father, I just ask you to find a way to use him, keep him occupied in things that are good. Father, I ask that for all of us, that in this time where we see news story after news story is negative, and we hear about what a terrible world we live in. It's not really that way. And we just ask that you open up our eyes to what's going on around us and all the good and all the people that are trying to make a difference out there. And we thank you for that. We thank you for your involvement in our world. We thank you for the opportunity that you're giving us to be part of that, Lord. And I just ask that you keep us all safe and draw us all near to you, Father.
And Father God, as we talk about the light, with Sermon on the Mount, you tell us that we're the light of the world and that a city set on a hill cannot be hidden. So we just need to, shine our light.
And Lord, I ask as my daughter and son and my new granddaughter travel back to the States tomorrow, that everything is safely done, that your word and your life will be reflected in them.
Lord, I just thank you for the amazing experience this past weekend and the hope that I saw across this nation. Lord, you are moving in a mighty way, and I just pray that we can all just see it happening. Thank you, Jesus.
Lord, we pray for the Murphy family and the tragedy which has happened in their lives, and that they can go on and eventually see the glory in your son.
And all those and brothers and sisters said, amen.
Amen.
Excellent. Thank you all.
Hey, one other thing, if you guys can just, my daughter's boyfriend is European and he's been trying to get to the United States. Robin's due next month. And he's in Mexico and he's in Cancun. And Zeta is there tonight.
Heading that way.
Yeah, and he's never experienced a hurricane.
Oh, boy.
They just have obstacle after obstacle.
Yeah.
Okay.
All righty. Love you all. We'll see you same time next week.
Love you.
Thank you, Tim.
Bye.
Bye.